Okay, so a meditation on beginner's mind. So get settled in, comfortable, eyes lowered, and I'm going to ask you, please, to let go of all preconceptions, all assumptions about Zen, about meditation, about your practice and what practice is, even about your life and yourself. Just allow all ideas to settle and dwindle and disappear. Just for a little while. No problem, they'll be patiently waiting for you to be picked up again later. For now, see what it's like to allow yourself to have a real break from them. Let's experience the next few moments together as totally fresh, totally new. Unlike in some forms of meditation practice, in Zen, we don't really try to do anything special at all with our minds. We simply assume that the condition of beginner's mind, of one mind, of no mind, are already here completely. And it's simply a matter of allowing them to show themselves. In the case of beginner's mind, on a primary level, it's simply the recognition that we are new to this moment. Every moment, any now, arises fresh, new, now, never having arisen before. And we are a part of that newness. Everything we hear, see, feel now is entirely new. And we can receive it, experience it as a true beginner for the first time. Take the next breath, for example. Let it roll in and roll out. Let the breaths be like waves, swells on a great ocean. They roll in from far away. And just now, this breath reaches us. Feel its movement in the body. Rise and fall. As the wave, the swell comes through. In, out. rise and fall, passing through. Just see if you can taste each rise, each fall as the only thing arising and then leaving, passing away. Here and gone. Here, gone. Totally new when here. Totally new when gone. It's a sort of about doing less, not more. Nothing but this inhale, this exhale. The beauty of Zen is its simplicity. It could not be simpler. And the challenge of Zen is also its simplicity. Zen is perhaps the simplest form of Buddhism, the practice of awakening. No devices, no tricks. Just being now. Can we become simple enough to really meet now? To become now this. Okay, so you can just sort of stay kind of meditative if you want, or adjust however you wish. I'm going to speak a little bit, and then take a look at some questions. And so please, right now, I think there's only one question actually. So please write another if you would like to. Fine if you don't want to, we'll just see what happens. Here's the little point I wanted to try to speak about this morning briefly. That, I sometimes talk about there being different levels of practice. And this is something deep in the Zen tradition, actually, way back in the 7th century. A master, Wei Nung, talked about 4 levels of practice and practitioners. And so it's nothing new, this notion that there are different reasons we practice. And I've come to the conclusion myself that it's kind of healthy probably to operate in all of them. I think I used to think that it was all about just awakening, profoundly realizing the nature of our reality, our consciousness, which is single, infinite, and utterly empty and utterly full at the same time. And to realize that in a moment of clear, sudden awakening, that you can never get to it by degrees. It just has to kind of blast us open and show itself. That's what I used to think, and that was what practice was for. And I don't not think that anymore, but I think that there are other dimensions that are also practice can help with. The most important parts of these is the first level, which is sort of psychological well-being, seeing, releasing, welcoming, healing our blocks, the eddies in our psyches where we get caught, the various kinds of syndromes and complexes and so on that many of us have that trip us up in life. Practice can indeed be a powerful way of addressing these. Personally, over the years, I've done a lot of therapy too, of different kinds that have all helped in different ways. And I'm not one of those practitioners who thinks you shouldn't do therapy. They do exist, even today. You might not think so, but they do. But I think it's probably wise and healthy for us to do that when we need to. And it may be that we have to do practice in order to realize that a little therapy might be helpful. I was of that ilk myself. It was only when I started sitting that I actually sort of started to relax just enough to realize what a mess I was in. And then started therapy, and practice and therapy can be very helpful as a combination. But how does practice help on that level? Well, basically, and how do we know when we're sort of making progress on that level in practice? The answer is quite simple. We start feeling more love. Love for life, love for others, and love for ourselves. We start to occupy a position where we don't have to be so bound up in our inner difficulties. And we can instead we can identify really with a loving awareness rather than identifying with the knots and tangles that we had previously been identified with. And because of that, they have a chance of healing. The love is the healing agent. It's by letting it in. See, basically we're surrounded and permeated by love. That's what existence is. Even though, of course, there may be so many challenges of different kinds in life that we don't feel that. But at the basic level, to exist is a sort of single love. It's a boundless, single, universal, all-occupying love. That's what to exist is. But we don't necessarily feel that. And as we develop and deepen in practice, that's what starts to really show itself and function as a healing agent. So it does it on that psychological level. And then there's a question, well, if love is the agent of healing, what happens when we are a bit more healed, so to speak, on one level? And then love is then the fruit of that healing, the product, the result of that healing, that we feel more able to act in loving, caring ways. So then we could go to the next level, would be for many in meditation, it would be about opening up to understanding the self, not as a solid entity, but as a complex of sensory processes, essentially. And sort of seeing these processes going on without there being a self at the center of them. That would be, for many, a sort of deeper level of practice. And there, too, where we felt the nugget, the concentration, the density of self in the middle of our being, when that is released, it's just a boundless, spacious love is what we experience. There's an infinitely loving quality to the space where we used to be, so to speak. And once again, it's like the release of the clenched fist of self. It opens, and it's really some sort of magic kind of love that makes that release happen. And then, again, what is revealed is this loving space that's sort of holding all. And then on a, may I say, third level, which is where Zen really is quite clear in its emphasis on this possibility for all of us, is sort of real awakening. And by real, I mean clearly seeing in an undeniable experience that's powerful, not just, and it's not cultivatable. You can't cultivate this. You can cultivate various things in practice, and we should do, mostly about loving awareness, and then deeper and deeper samadhi, or concentration or absorption, going into deeper and deeper states of absorption. To some extent, that all of that we can cultivate, but not real awakening. It doesn't come from us. It reveals something about us and about the world as we've known it. What it reveals, unmistakably, marvelously, is that we've never been here. I mean, that's it, really. We've never been here. I remember seeing a movie about Yogananda, and he talked somewhere in that, something I don't remember reading it in his book, actually. I loved his autobiography of a yogi, but I don't remember him actually saying this in that book. But in this little clip in a documentary about him, there's a moment when he says that the point, the purpose, he says, life is a movie. And the purpose of life is to turn around and see the beams of the projector. To see that what we've taken life to be actually is a kind of illusion, and that it's coming from somewhere. It's really something else that it's coming from, and you can turn around and see that. Of course, it's not really physically turning around, but we can flip the way we've been constructing life. And it's true, this is one way it could be expressed. And to see that powerfully is very transformative, actually. Although it's not usually, I'm afraid to say, for most of us, quite enough. Even to have a glimpse like that, which Zen calls kensho, it's in our Zen training method, that would be the moment at which we can start doing training in koans, if we're interested in that, beyond the first koan. And the reason Zen suggests doing koan training or ongoing training after a moment like that is that, by and large, it's a lot of work to get to the real liberation, which is not just having seen that, but having let go of any sense that there's a difference between that boundless, empty, single reality of awakening and our absolutely ordinary daily life. See, most of us may have a glimpse like that, and then we'll feel that we sort of come back to quote unquote ordinary life. And then we set up a little bit of a dichotomy, a little bit of a split between what awakening is as an experience, which is great because we've known it now, and then what ordinary life is, which is something different. And the Zen view is that that's not yet free. It's not really yet awakened. It's an experience of awakening, but it's not yet real awakening. I mean, I don't quite like the way I'm putting it, because I don't want to be implying that, there's real and unreal. I don't mean that. Just that there is another possible step, which is to be able to no longer have a difference between this moment sitting here as we are now and boundless, empty, infinite reality. It's possible that they become one. Not because they become one, but because they always have, in fact, been one. But we've tended to only see the first, and then we're lucky and have a glimpse into the second, and then we've got two. One way of experiencing and another way of experiencing. A deluded, ordinary way and an awakened way. Well, obviously, that's not yet free. So, okay, that's when the love permeates enough that it knocks away that distinction. And it usually does it not through, people sometimes talk about integrating the relative and the absolute. I don't agree with that at all. You don't have to integrate anything. There's nothing to integrate. It's dropping away, letting go of enough that it just becomes clear. So I think that's enough talking on the subject that I brought to the table. So I'm now going to look at these some questions that have come in. Okay, is this okay with everybody if I proceed to some questions? I'm just going to assume it is. Okay, see some nodding and thumbs, great. So now please feel free to send more in if you want. Okay, let's see. Can you talk a little about the dichotomy of sudden awakening as a special moment of awakening in quotes, and just regular old daily sitting practice? Okay, so I think that's just, what's the difference between, well, have I just addressed that? Maybe I've just been talking about that. Sudden awakening are these sudden glimpses that happen. By the way, the view that there's a thing called sudden awakening, or can be a thing called sudden awakening, often goes with a notion that there's sudden awakening and there's gradual cultivation. Two sides to practice. Sudden awakening is a sudden glimpse where everything falls away, or some things fall away, and this thing I've been talking about is revealed, boundless, empty, one, and just regular old daily sitting practice. Okay, so the point is, it's a great question really, but let me just sort of slightly adjust it. Yes, sudden awakening, gradual cultivation. The Zen tradition recognizes that basically both are needed. It's not enough to just have sudden awakening. We've got to do the gradual cultivation as well. Why? Because we're essentially multidimensional beings. I mean, I don't mean that in a fancy sense, just normal sense. We can grow dramatically in one area and be really stuck in other areas. It's the daily sitting and not just the sitting, but the dealing with daily life that teach us constantly. And the whole thing is like, well, how much is all very well to have an awakening experience, but how nice and great, and we're lucky if they happen. But how do we actually live it? How does it change life for ourselves? Fair enough. But also, more importantly, perhaps for others around us. How do we live differently? Well, this is what I was talking about at the beginning. Love as the agent of healing, love as the fruit, product, result of healing. See, it's got to be both. It's not enough just to have marvelous experiences. Now, the daily old sitting practice, as it's put here, the just regular old daily sitting practice, that is one of the arenas where awakening can start to be integrated into our ordinary life. But I don't think it's enough, actually. I think it is also about how do we approach every moment? Do we start to be aware of where we get stuck, where we go offline, where we're suddenly on reactivity, autopilot, and we don't really know what we're doing? And then suddenly we realize, oh man, did I really just say that? How did that come out of my mouth? So the process of learning to be more and more aware in more and more contexts. I mean, I've got one mentor who actually graduates out 17 kinds of context that are more and more challenging for our practice. The first would be walking. The second is eating, alone, by the way, both those. And then the third would be, I don't know, I can't remember actually how it goes on, but I know the 17th is a highly charged confrontation with another person, where they're yelling at you. How do you stay in practice, in clear awareness for that? By the way, I once met, I was on a flight with these two football referees, soccer referees, a father and a son, who were both professional refs. They happened to be sitting next to me on the flight. And the dad, who was really quite a sage, he was talking about how he'd have team captains or sponsors or managers or something cornering him in the lavatory, you know, and haranguing him over some decision he's made, coming right up in his face, ready to punch him, you know, over some call he'd made in the game. And he said, you know, imagine when that happens and you've just been running for an hour, you know, so your heart's pounding, your lungs are, you know, you're out of breath, you're pumped up already, and then that comes at you. It's so easy to fly off the handle. And he would just tap into his breath right away. In other words, bring his mind to his breath, bring his mind to his feet, just stay there while this was coming at him, and then be able to respond in a way that dialed down the situation. That's pretty impressive, I thought. And he wanted to know more about Zen, but I don't think he really necessarily needed very much. But anyway, okay, another question. As we practice going more inside, figuratively and literally, as the old patterns and thought forms try to creep back in and cause us to be anxious, in those moments, what is one important thing for us to remember? Okay, I like this a lot, actually. The one reason I particularly like this question is that it says just one important thing. I think that's a really good point. It's much easier to have one thing rather than here's 5 steps, you know, just give me one thing. Well, I think I sort of just did actually with that guy. He tapped into his breath. Okay, this was 2 things, sorry. You can choose one of these. He tapped into his breath, he tapped into his feet. Now, okay, anxiety may be a little different. I think it depends on the circumstances. Let's say you're alone. Let's imagine that first. You're in your car or you're at home at your desk. You don't watch too much news. Ration news, okay? That would be number one. For some of you, that's the one thing to remember. Ration news. It's once a day or twice a day at a set hour for a set period of time, and then it's over. Okay, for some of you, that's your one thing. But for some others of you, the one thing would be about anxiety would be this. Close your eyes, find it in the body. For many, it's going to be chest area. For a few, it may be deeper in the body, solar plexus or belly. Of 94% or something like that in a survey of people felt anxiety in their chest. So you may be one of those who's below the chest, but find it in your body. How do you know when you find it? It doesn't feel good. It feels like a tightness, a clenching, a tension, a weight, a density, a churning. It's something. It's the thing you don't want to feel. Okay, I'm trying to keep this to one. It's not that easy actually, because I mean, the first thing is to find it in your body as this unpleasant sensation that you'd much rather not be feeling. But I'm sorry, there is another step. There just has to be. So this is one thing with 2 steps. Okay, will you grant me that, please? So it goes like this. Find it in the body. And some of you may not find that very easy. Some of you will find it very easy. You've done some somatic work, or your yogis or something. You're tapped into the body more. Some of you will be less tapped into the body. And you say, well, I don't find it in my body. I find it in my head. No, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a body sensation that is unpleasant. When you find it, this is part of the one thing, you've got to love it. You have to wrap it in loving awareness. That's the one thing. And that's not very easy, and I think it takes a bit of practice and maybe even a little guidance, but it can be done. You can learn a few tricks. I said earlier we don't do tricks in Zen, but, well, it's not a trick. It's just love. You can learn how to love more easily. Okay, next one. Okay, this is just a practical question about somebody who teaches at a small college in Texas and is usually location bounded. So maybe in the near future, I'll come for retreats. I mean, honestly, I don't know how many of us will be able to do that or in how near a future, but we'll see. Will I be able to continue this online meditation with all of you? Of course. Will you continue these meetings? Yes, that's the plan. For free almost. Yes, that's the plan. And I'm thinking about being a member, however. Please, please, please. Mountain Cloud would love you to become a member, all of you, if you're not already. Please, please. We have very little revenue right now, as you can imagine. So any support you feel moved to offer Mountain Cloud, including becoming a remote member, we would be immensely grateful, and it's very easy on the website. So thank you very much. Okay, in your book, that's my book, One Blade of Grass, you described a clear but not deep experience. Is that what you're talking about now? I mean, actually, unfortunately, it sounds like I should have read that at the moment it came in, because I don't know what I was talking about, what precise moment it was. I mean, I would say, I could talk a little bit about, the thing is that, every time we have a Kensho experience, we think it's infinitely deep and infinitely comprehensive. It feels like we've just seen the whole of the universe, really. We feel like we've seen all there is to see. And in a way, we're right. Whatever real Kensho moment we have is kind of total. There's nothing left out of it. It's just that there are deeper experiences, which are also total. They're deeper in the sense that they seem to go through us more. It's as if there's more scope for them to just drop right through us. They seem to have done that. And then a few years later, there's something else that we could never possibly have foreseen. And then maybe several years or many years later, there's even something again. So I would say that one measure of this matter of depth in these kinds of experiences is how much it feels like it's something that happened and we kind of, in a way, revert from it back to some previous norm. And we still know it, it's still, in a sense, with us, but we're not quite living it. It happened and it's sort of gone. The deeper one that I'm aware of, and there may be who knows how many that I'm not aware of, but the deeper one that I am aware of is the one that stops that. It's no longer, there's no longer any need, really, in a sense, for anything. Certainly not to sort of be maintaining some kind of state of mind. It's all just gone, and it's just a wonderful arising of everything as it is, each thing as it is, being sort of like the whole universe showing itself now and now and now, and there's just really no need left. So that's Henry's take on that, and others might well be deeper than I am. So let's have a look at another one. Yeah, any thoughts on the dangers of enlightenment in the hands of psychopaths? I mean, I think in the hands of a psychopath, just about anything's dangerous. what isn't dangerous in the hands of a psychopath? I mean, is there some particular, are there particular dangers in enlightenment? Can I reframe it that way? And I think there probably might be, actually. And the biggest one would be grandiosity. If you're not in training and remain in training under a teacher, I think it could go to your head. Or you could get very destabilized and lost. I wrote about it in my book. I had a random enlightenment experience when I was 19 without any idea really what was going on, what it was. And it was wonderful for a few weeks, and then I had a kind of nervous breakdown, and which was partly because of that, other factors definitely as well. And so and it was years before I really found a guide that I was willing to entrust myself to. So there can be that kind of danger of being destabilized. And then I think there are quite a lot of people out there who have had some kind of awakening, and their first thought is to trade on it. Or maybe it's not their first thought, but they think a few months later, oh, well, I've obviously got to start marketing this and becoming a teacher. I mean, I've had an awakening experience. I'm ready to teach anybody, everybody. Well, in Zen, we think that's rubbish. An awakening experience is just the start of a long training process. We've got to go, in a sense, beyond it. We've got to get to that point where we know it's no longer, for us, it's actually, you don't really have to think about it, really. It's just this moment arising. This is what there is. And in the face of that, I mean, really, the only real sort of attitude can be utter gratitude and humility and compassion and desire to help, if possible, do what we can to help. Anything that remains of, I'm going to, put myself forward. Well, you might think, that's a sure sign that it's sort of not enough awakening, really. And maybe you think I'm putting myself forward here. And I suppose in a sense I am, but only because I've been asked to by my teachers, and only to the extent that I'm serving as a, well, sort of in a sense, a substitute for them, because they can't be everywhere. They need others to carry on the teaching, and I'm doing my best to do that. So I hope that I'm not sort of running the risk of letting any unseen psychopathic tendencies in myself come forward. I don't think so, but they could develop, you never know. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, here's one. What is the trick, Henry? What is the trick with a little face after it, or method we can use to love/wrap in loving awareness, that contraction in the chest? In other words, can you, Henry, I'm going to rephrase it. Can you give us any pointers about how to help us learn to hold the contraction in the chest, if it's there, in loving awareness? Well, yes, I can, but it takes a bit of time to lead you through. And I think this is probably better done either another time or privately, because I'd have to take 10 minutes at least to lead us all through it. Okay, another one. When you speak of applying loving awareness to an unpleasant sensation, to anxiety in the body here, what do you mean? Okay, yeah, this is coming from someone for whom love does not bring to mind a clear emotional perspective. Okay, maybe I'll combine the two. Okay, so just close your eyes a moment or lower your gaze. Okay, this will be brief. And just scan through the body and see if you can Pick out any sensation, maybe a foot, a knee, or something in the chest. It doesn't really matter, pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. Just hand, to feel a hand. Maybe best to do something neutral. So now, we're now holding that sensation in awareness. Awareness is aware of the sensation of the hand. Allow awareness to simply welcome the sensation of the hand, as if it were saying, hi, hello, glad you've shown up. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. I'm happy you're here. Hand. Thank you. And then you could just take a little look in the chest area. See if there might be any kind of warmth or some sort of activation, or perhaps sort of melting, or a sense of openness, or even a sense of tenderness. Just stay with that, and I'm just going to add in another question that popped up, which is how Joseph Goldstein said you don't even have to let go, you just have to not hold on. How do you, Henry, not hold on? And actually, this is how. By welcoming what arises. By letting it be and letting it know it's welcome. It's wanted. There's gratitude for its arising. Deep gratitude. And that gratitude can grow and spread. It really need have no limit. It can just spread and grow and grow and spread right through the body and beyond the body. Gratitude. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm feeling gratitude for these questions, actually, and gratitude for this time with you, and gratitude for your patience and willingness to practice and to practice together in this arena. And thank you very much, Luke, for hosting us, and thank you for Johanna for also being part of our hosting team. And I don't think that I can hear anybody for some reason. But Luke, would you say a few closing words or something and wrap it up? Maybe I'll see your lips moving. Anyway.
Yes. Donations can be made to Mountain Cloud at mountaincloud.org /donations. I'll include this in a chat to everyone. Dana for Henry can be sent to his PayPal, which is henryshukman@gmail.com. or his Venmo, which is at capital H Henry capital S Shukman. Next weekend from 9:30 till 12:30 Mountain Time, we'll do a half-day sit. It's a $20 donation is requested, but not necessary. And there's one more comment that came in. And there we have it. Thank you all. Thank you, Henry.
Does everyone know about next weekend?
Yes.